I don't like getting these photos out because they make me think about him, and that makes me sad.
In Tunisia, smoking a joint can get you 1 year in prison. That is because of a tough measure known as Law 52, passed back in the time of authoritarian President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. Now, 5 years after his overthrow, there are 5,200 people behind bars for possession of marijuana. That is nearly 1/3 of all the people in Tunisia's overcrowded prisons. Our observer had her life turned upside down by the law. Our reporters went to Tunis to hear her story.
Hello.
Hello.
You asked us to come talk to us about Law 52.
Yes, I want to talk to you about Law 52 and about what my son Wael is going through. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison for smoking cannabis. His situation is very complicated now. Please come in and we can talk about it. This is the children's room. That's a photo of Wael. I was missing him and I didn't have any recent photos, so he took this one of himself and gave it to me. I don't like getting these photos out because they make me think about him, and that makes me sad. The doctor told me that he was ill and that he needed treatment. He said Wael should see a psychiatrist, but he isn't receiving any treatment in prison. He cut himself here on his forearms. On this photo, we can see that his forearms are covered in cuts. I went to see him last Thursday. He told me that he'd been put with convicted murderers. When he was in Nador prison, he was put with Salafists. What's wrong with our prisons? How can they put minor offenders with people convicted of murder and Salafists? It shouldn't happen. That's what they did. If a child or a young person is arrested, they should be forced to clean the streets. Let them clean Tunisia from east to west if needs be. But they shouldn't go to prison for their first offence. Nothing good comes of it. They should receive a heavy fine and be forced to work to pay it. That's my opinion in any case. I'd like the law to be changed. That's what I urge the state to do. Wael gave me this. He gave me this canary when he was in Madir prison. It's the first canary he gave me when he was in that prison. That one is called Wael. He said to me, look after it like it was me, seeing as I'm not with you. So I look after it more than the two others.
This is a working-class neighbourhood of Tunis. We were told that it's easy to get your hands on cannabis here. We're here to find out if that's true. Hello. Do you live in this neighbourhood?
Yes, yes.
Do lots of the kids here smoke pot?
All of us. Yes, all of us. I've been arrested twice.
Who's been arrested over cannabis?
Everyone, a lot, 70%. I was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison and a 1,500 dinar fine. They arrested me during a raid. They did a test and I was positive, so I was sent down for 1.5 years and got a 1,500 dinar fine. No, I didn't pay it. I don't have any money to pay it with. If you don't pay, you go back to prison. The fine goes up, and when it reaches 10,000 dinars, they send you back to prison.
The group don't want to continue talking in this square because of suspected police informers, so they take us a little further into the neighbourhood.
The police try to stir up trouble for us. If you live in a working-class neighbourhood, they automatically suppose that you take drugs. If the police arrest you for fighting, they do a drugs test.
Is cannabis just an excuse to arrest you?
Yes, of course. They test you even if you haven't done anything wrong. A urine test.
How do you buy cannabis here?
There are dealers everywhere in Tunisia, dealers who have blocks like this.
One of them wants to show how easy it is to buy drugs just a few steps away from here.
They're blocks of cannabis.
And what's that pill?
It's artane, a psychotropic drug.
What does it do?
It calms you down. You take it and you feel no stress.
Is it stronger than cannabis?
Yes.
Are the prison terms for hard drugs and cannabis the same?
No, for cannabis it is 1,500 dinars fine and 1 year in prison. But for pills you're sentenced to 6 months, but in general after 3 they let you out.
Law 52 doesn't only affect impoverished neighborhoods. Here are Atef, a painter, and Aladdin, a filmmaker.
We had long beards, so they thought we were preparing a terrorist attack at my friend Allah's house. 15 police officers showed up, 8 wearing balaclavas and armed. They searched the house and found nothing associated with terrorism. But as they were leaving, they found something.
وهم خارجين لقاو حاجة قالوا لي هما لقاو حاجة
Cannabis.
زاتلة.
That's right, because they couldn't find anything else. It became about cannabis. They didn't want to go back to the police station without something to show.
We were held in Nepal for 6 days. They tried to make us take a urine test 3 times. We refused. You are allowed to refuse because it's your right. I refused to supply any bodily substances for analysis.
The 2 artists spent 1 month behind bars before being released for procedural irregularity.
This law was introduced by Ben Ali in 1992 to put pressure on young people. After 2011 and the so-called revolution, the same Ben Ali laws are used to repress young people and to silence those who wish to speak out. To repress artists, for example, like us in the artistic field. Young people from poor neighborhoods, small people, ordinary people, they are all prevented from protesting and from expressing themselves. If a police officer doesn't like the look of someone in the street, he makes him do a cannabis test.
They got out. But for Fajera's son, the downward spiral continues. Sentenced to 1 year in prison for cannabis consumption, Wael's sentence has been extended several times. We head to court. Fajera's son has been accused once again of acts of violence against prison staff. But his mother blames his mistreatment in prison.
My son wrote this letter. He gave it to me in prison. He wants me to show it to associations, to everyone, so that his voice can be heard.
What does the letter say?
It describes everything that goes on in prison. The beatings, the insults, the humiliations, a lot of things.
And who does that to him?
The prison guards.
Outside the courthouse, there is good news, for once.
This time he wasn't convicted. Good, thanks. He's been acquitted in this case, but he's still facing a 9-year sentence.
Tunisia has opted for repression, not prevention, to combat cannabis use. Because in terms of prevention, nothing is done, or very little.
Don't spend time with people who take drugs. Don't go places where drugs are taken. Don't remain unemployed, because if you do, you'll get stressed and you'll become weak, and the emptiness will make you relapse. Nobody leaves here without doing a month of therapy. If anyone leaves, I get the Kalashnikov out, okay? God help you. Get out of here.
Sfax is home to Tunisia's only rehabilitation centre. The centre was financed by an international organisation, but the subsidy has ended and the centre is barely operating. There are 14 patients and only 1 psychiatrist, who comes twice a week.
Please, take a seat. How long have you been here?
Including today, 9 days.
And before coming, had you ever stopped?
Yes, I had stopped 3 days before.
For those 3 days, were you stressed?
Yes, I was very stressed.
What type of stress?
I was anxious.
Yes.
Sometimes I fought with my mother.
If you stay at home, you fight with your mother.
Yes, I flew off the handle with her for little things, and with my wife too.
OK, well, if you aren't feeling well, you should tell us so that we can help you, and so that we can give you advice. Don't stay alone. You're not alone here.
The centre is going to close in a few weeks' time. However, patients continue to arrive.
OK, so you brought him here.
Yes, I want him to stay here with you so he can be weaned off it.
We'd love to take him, but as my colleague told you, we're going through difficult times.
They have come with an admission letter from a public hospital, and they want to admit their son. But at the moment, we're taking on our last group of patients. We don't have the means to do more. We don't know what to do. We have 380 patients on our waiting list. This is the only centre. We aren't asking for the impossible. We're grateful to the group that financed us for 7 or 8 years. Now the Ministry of Health should resume responsibility and take over the centre definitively.
President of Tunisia has declared his desire to relax Law 52, particularly by limiting prison sentences for repeat offenders and by putting others in detox programmes. An amendment was even put forward by the government, but it never went to a vote. Perhaps because, in fact, there are no centres to treat cannabis smokers. We asked for a meeting with an official from the Ministry of Justice. They call us back. We organised an interview to begin with, and now you're saying the person is no longer available.
It's not the right time. But you can try speaking with someone from the Health Ministry.
But we want to talk with the Justice Ministry because they administer Law 52.
Sorry. It's their decision.
With terrorist threats and social unrest to deal with, the Tunisian government perhaps has other priorities than reforming Law 52. Nevertheless, the law continues to destroy lives. For Fajra and for thousands of other mothers, prison visits are not set to end anytime soon.
We're going to be checking in with our observers to see if Law 52 is eventually amended, as the government has promised. In the meantime, if you want to hear the music used in our report, go to YouTube and look for Mehdi El Hamdi. We'll see